Alright, we're back in the Woodsty. I've got a little Ceanothus burl here. It's a pretty dense one. It's got your typical fire damage and a lot of little inclusions. I think I'm going to put it between centers. Start shaping this and get probably a tenon down here. Something I can grab onto. And then I think there might be a little vase shape in there somewhere. But cardinal rule of wood turning is pay attention and the wood will tell you what it should be, and don't ignore the wood because that's when things go sideways. So I think I might have to, well, yeah, I think that's the plan. So let's see what we can see.
Natural curves in nature, like the sweep of a river, the arc of a leaf, or the spiral of a shell, follow patterns that often feel instinctively harmonious to us. There's a reason for that. Our brains are hardwired to respond positively to certain kinds of shapes, especially those that are smooth, flowing, and organic. These curves often follow mathematical principles, like the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio, that show up again and again in natural growth patterns. When these kinds of curves are applied to a vase, or any designed object, they feel familiar and right to us, even if we can't articulate why. A vase with a soft belly and a tapering neck might echo the curve of a flower stem, the form of a gourd, or even the silhouette of the human body. These natural references, whether conscious or not, trigger a kind of visual comfort or even reverence. The psychology of it plays a role too. Sharp angles can feel aggressive or unstable, while curves feel safe, soft, and inviting. Our eyes like to follow a line without interruption. A gentle S-curve, for example, gives the eye a journey. It moves smoothly, rhythmically, like a dance or a melody. Did you hear about the dyslexic man who was bad at poetry? So far he has messed up 3 jugs and a vase.
I'm sure that I've told you guys this a billion times, and you know, I'm going to say it again. This is really, really hard wood, and as a result, it's hard to turn, but it's also very forgiving. I think I'm going to be able to keep this piece that I put back on. I'm just trying to creep up on the right curve to make this make sense, and I'm feeling like maybe this is a little bit too fat. Ultimately, the goal here is to have a bud vase. I need to widen this hole. I mean, it's so close. The drill bit was like the exact diameter, so when I try to push it in, I get an air bubble. But so I'll work on that with probably sandpaper, just so it'll sit snug. And you can see it's going to be down inside there, and so I'm going to slope this in. That's kind of the vision. But the whole time I'm just sort of looking at it, kind of with my eyes blurred, sort of trying to find the shape. And this feels too fat, so that's where my brain is. Which means I'll probably lose this wire burn, but we'll see. Probably talking too much, but at first I wanted the transition here to be more obvious with a line, but I'm actually liking the smooth transition better because it just accentuates the wood. And as much as I love wire burning, a wire burn's not going to improve this, in my opinion. I'd like to hear what you all think, but I feel like the thing that makes this wood unique is its unique swirl coupled with all these imperfections. And when you start trying to put wire burns on it, you're just distracting from that. So that's where my brain's going now. It's also occurred to me I got to figure out how to take the bottom off of this thing, which, you know, there's ways. Like I could jam chuck it onto a dowel or something. A lot of the things that I discover are probably common sense that people already know. But as many of you probably know, I've never taken any kind of class on wood turning. So everything I've learned is from watching others and from just doing. One of the things I like about a carbide tool is because it's circular, when you're making a natural curve shape, you can kind of feel it. And where you put your pivot, for lack of a better term, determines the tightness of the curve. So if I'm way back on the tool, it's a different shape than if I'm going off my thumb or going off back here. So that's kind of how I'm coming to the feel of this. And what I don't want is like a nice curve and then you hit like an angle and it's sudden and abrupt. And there's still a little bit of that right here. So that's kind of what my brain is doing. And like I said, that might be common sense, I don't know, but that's how I came to that. at that. That's a really nice. Now what I'll do, I'm going to then follow up with the polishing paste or wax, just to get a nice shine, a little protective layer with that carnauba. But then with these inclusions, I'm going to do a round of OB Shine Juice, and it probably won't take on the waxed areas, but it'll go in the holes real nice. So I think it'll work out. We'll see. But you can't complain about that look. All right, that was an enjoyable little project. There's your bud vase. A lot of people who find these kind of burls on the beach that are really not something you could turn, they have so many little inclusions that they'll put air plants in them and make little decorative things. So it's kind of in the same vein as that. You could put one in. That fits just perfect. I don't know if you saw it. Just enough air getting past for that to slide in, but it's not so tight you can't pull it out. So a little bud vase or air plant, or you could put a paper flower in there if you wanted, whatever. So I think that'll make a nice little gift for someone, maybe my mom, since I'm visiting her this week. Y'all can keep a secret, right? Alright, thanks for watching. Hit the buttons and stay tuned for the montage, and then we'll catch you next time. Have a good one.